What's up, guys? I wanted to come on and make another video, a part 2 of the last video I made, the end of the year futures predictions for ES and NQ. I felt like last video I didn't go in depth enough. I kind of broke down like why we're doing this 60-40-20 days, but I want to do a little more future projection. So that's what I'm going to try and do in this video. As you can see, we did end up continuing above this daily fair value gap. Like I said in the last video, we came down to the top of it, projected higher, closing out. So I'm going to try and be a little more specific here. Closing out this year, and especially going into next week, I'm going to be targeting these highs for buy side because they are the swing high in the last 20 days on this daily chart. So when we talk about quarterly shifts, it's really all framed in the daily context. And again, I suggest you all go watch that core content month 5 from ICT, because when you don't consider anything lower than the daily and we're just predicting quarterly shift in the daily, remember, price is fractal. So it really kind of opens your eyes. Whereas, if I didn't tell you this was the daily chart, but I told you I wanted to see price come all the way up here, if you've looked at the market long enough and you kind of understand, like, it would be reasonable to say, oh yeah, like price relative to this market structure, like price can easily like come up and take that. But when we frame it on the daily, sometimes it can be hard to imagine us retracing all the way up here, because it took see how long it took us about 3 months or 2 months to get down here. So it's like that weird time factor on the daily where it's like it took us so long to get down to here, that's like so far away. But in reality of price and it's how it's fractal, this high isn't far away. I shorted from this swing high down to this weekly objective on other accounts that wasn't on this YouTube channel. But I will hesitate to try and go like swing trade along to these highs, just with the current climate overseas and kind of in our government right now, holding longs overnight. Like, I don't want to hold longs overnight. The same should be said about shorts. I know ICT has been kind of preaching that, like, he's not holding anything overnight. I was comfortable holding these shorts, just because of kind of where price was, how obvious it was. We had ICT reaffirm us about this objective. And kind of right here, things were really starting to boil over in our current climate. So I felt like it was appropriate. But going long, I don't want to go long. I mean, you could profit going long. For example, there's a lot of protests happening around the world about what's happening in the Middle East right now. So with that, such strong outward pressure, we could see wording from the U.S. that's a lot stronger about a ceasefire. And I think with the Fed pausing rates, if that was to start happening, I could see us accelerating a lot more. But anyway, not to get too much into like fundamentals, because we really just focus on candlesticks here. I'm targeting going into next week this high. Now, what that means is I don't think it's going to open Monday and go straight there. It could do that, but remember, price doesn't move in straight lines. And after having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up days, we could have 6, 7. We could have as many up days as we want, but the odds of a little bit of a retracement are likely. So I will be expecting a retracement a little bit lower and a little bit lower I'm thinking that Monday's price action could form a fair value gap. Now, whether it's a fair value gap in this candle or it comes all the way down into this fair value gap, we're going to have to wait and see. So Monday, we're going to have to be pretty nimble. But I think what I'm expecting next week to happen is for us to kind of retrace to a discount array. And remember, we can stay in that discount array for indefinite, a long amount of time. So just because we come down and tap into this fair value gap doesn't mean the next day or that day we have to then repel from it and go take this buy side. It could come down here, spend 2, 3, 4 days. Look how many days we spent inside of this fair value gap before we sent it lower. So this is the fair value gap I shorted from, and we spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to count this one, 6 days after we entered it before we really left it with some intention. So again, when price enters the PD array, we don't know how long it's going to stay there. So just keep that in mind about a retracement. But then again, it could come down, retrace, and it could not even come down into these fair value gaps. But again, I will be targeting this buy side, and I'm interested to see how it takes this buy side. So when we look back 20 days, this is our high and this is our low. So this is pretty obvious. And the further out you project, it does become less obvious, obviously. So 40 days, we have these highs. I think it could get up to there. I will want to watch to see how we take these highs. So if we close above these highs and then find a certain level of support, I will then say these highs are in play. But again, I want to see how we close above these highs. In terms of, when we look out 60 days and we're projecting what this quarterly shift can look like. So as you can see, in the last video, I explained this daily market maker sell model and how, we just finished delivering this buy side, then we delivered the sell side of the curve. And don't get too caught up in the idea that it has to be one or the other of those, because it can go sideways. I'm going to show you the continuous chart on ES real quick. Look at this. So actually, and it is one thing to note, this is that consolidation that we took. We actually, on the continuous chart, didn't take that sell side below it. It's just something to note. I prioritize the current contract month in terms of levels. ICT said that too, prioritize the current contract month. But when you're trying to get like a broader picture, it's perfectly fine to go, especially what I'm about to say right now. Look at this quarterly shift. So we started here, and technically we ended a little bit higher, but it was sideways. I think everyone will agree that this is sideways price action. It's a V. So we could easily have that for this. We could have that, imagine this, but inversed. We could have a come up right around here, and we could have it come down, and it'll just close again in mid-January, the next quarterly shift. It'll just close right around this low. I do think this retracement, I think we're running buy side to go lower in my opinion. If you notice, I'm going to go to the weekly chart for this. So again, remember, price is fractal. Don't get caught up in thinking, wow, we were really far away, because if you didn't see this big white candle, and I told you we were looking at the weekly, you'd be like, yeah, no way we're getting that. Because when this printed, I remember like the sentiment was like, no more bear market, we're sending all-time highs, like Nvidia saved the world. And then we came down here, and now people are, the fear and greed index was extreme fear, and now we're coming back up here. So remember, really try and detach from this weekly idea and just look at these candlesticks. we have these equal highs and we have these lows down here. So if you notice, we were in a pretty large sell program on the weekly. So we're up, high, lower high, lower high, lower high. We're making consecutive lower lows and lower highs. It really wasn't until right here that we decided to break that trend and deliver on this time frame some more buy side. But again, I think we could eventually come up here to then take this low out, and I'm talking this is like mid 2024 around here. But these highs are very even, if you notice, very equal. We're like halfway there in 1 week, so I could see us getting there just to send it lower. But going back to the daily time frame and talking about quarterly shifts, if you pay attention to what is said in that core content month, ICT really highlights the fact that notice where these swings are on this daily time frame within these 3 time ranges, because look how many times buy side was taken. So remember, we're thinking pools of liquidity on the institutional and fund level. So how many times was sell side taken? Well, if you start, let's start the high here. Sell side was taken once here. It was taken here. So 1, 2, 3. Came up 4, 5, 6, 7. That's compared to buy side. Came up. We took a higher high here. We took a high here, made a higher high. Buy side taken. These 2 highs came down. So that's one time. This we're talking swings. So this swing was 1 time we took buy side. Came down. This swing 2 times. All this buy side. So twice, 2 compared to, call it 5, call it 7. Clearly it's outnumbered that we took sell side consistently last quarterly shift. That means there's a lot of buy side. So remember, in terms of this algorithm, the algorithm seeks liquidity and inefficiencies so it can match buyers and sellers for liquidity purposes. So we just spent a whole quarter. Let's not even talk time frames. Looking at these bars, we took out a lot of sell side liquidity. We left a lot of buy side liquidity. So if price wants to continue taking sell side, it is going to have to retrace on people who have been selling to engage buy side liquidity, so it could engage new liquidity into the market to then move it again. So I say all that to say, here's our next buy side. We're very close to it. It's very easy and obvious to say that we're going to take that. These 2 highs are the further projection, and I'll be watching to see how we take this to determine whether we'll take this. But again, remember, we wait 20 days. We can do it in 20-day increments. So in terms of intermediate highs and short-term highs, I think what's going to happen is what can also give you a lot of confidence is, so I'm assuming that you know the context around ICTs, long-term highs, intermediate-term highs, and short-term highs. So even if you look at all this price right here, we haven't really had like a long-term high taken or like put into place on this daily. And I think what's going to happen is, especially because you can see right here, we came so aggressively off this weekly fair value gap. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to form another intermediate term high. And I think it's going to form by taking these. So it's gonna, we might retrace a little bit, create a swing high. And that's gonna be on the daily time frame, a short-term high. Then we're gonna send it higher to take this. That's, since what's gonna happen is it's gonna send higher. It's gonna break this swing high that's possibly formed right here. Then we're gonna have a short-term high. We're gonna have another high, and I think that's gonna be an intermediate term high in the making. I could see it retracing and then making, you know, another short-term high, and I'll speak on that a little more as price prints into the back half of these 20 days, but I'm expecting to form a short-term high, an intermediate term high, and then a short-term high. And how that price structure prints can give us a lot of indication on whether we're stopping here or continuing here. So I'll try and draw that out for you. Say, form a high there, and we just stop right there. Sometimes, hold on. That's an intermediate term high with two short-term highs next to it. But we still have this uptrend structure. Or what can happen is we could have it go like this, or we could have it go like this. So this is a scenario where, yeah, we just took that high to go aggressively lower. But this, we could still see this happen and then have it come back up and reprint. We could just see this, or we could just see this. So it still doesn't even make a lower low. So those are the three scenarios. You have this extremely lower low down here. You have it here where it just breaks that one. And then you have it here where it doesn't break that one. And I'll be watching to see how these next swing highs form as we take this buy side to determine the probability of us going up here. But when we do take this buy side, again, if we close above it, that is going to be a pretty significant market structure shift on this daily time frame. So remember, price is fractal. If this wasn't a daily chart and we were just looking at candles, we've been in this downtrend, and then this right here would be that significant shift in market structure. And it lines up really nicely with all this other narrative. We have this higher time frame, weekly, fair value gap. We have this original accumulation with this market maker sell model finishing. So I hope that was a little more in-depth than the last video in explaining, you know, how I'm going to go about price. So again, I'm going to be looking for longs to take this high. That doesn't mean all of our trades are going to be long, but that means our best ones will be, and the majority of them will have to be. And if we do go short, it's going to have to be really obvious. I think last month I got a little scalpy, a little more scalpy than I wanted to. I think it was me just trying to dig ourselves out of that little losing streak, but I'm going to try and get back to, bread and butter setups, catching daily ranges and really catching expansions, expansion candles and daily ranges. If you notice, so we are currently just below 50%. This high is above 50% of this dealing range. So I think it's also very likely that we take this high, even if it does want to send it lower, just to take this high. I also think that if we do eventually want to take this low, understand the context of it would want to eventually come into a premium so they can then sell it at the discount. Okay, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I'm going to show the continuous contract on the weekly one more time. Again, remember, just kind of look at this market structure without considering and detach from the time frame. We have these equal highs. I could see us taking them and then sending it lower. Okay, enjoy the rest of your night. I will be on next week.